The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. At that time, Jesus called to him his 12 disciples and gave them authority over unclean spirits to cast them out and to heal every disease and every infirmity. The names of the 12 apostles are these. First, Simon, who is called Peter, Andrew his brother, James the son of Zebedee, and John his brother, Philip and Bartholomew, Thomas and Matthew, the tax collector, James the son of Alphaeus, and Thaddeus, Simon the Canaanite, and Judas Iscariot, who betrayed him. These 12 Jesus sent out, charging them, "Go nowhere among the Gentiles, and enter no town of the Samaritans, but rather go to the lost sheep of the house of Israel, and preach as you go, saying, the kingdom of heaven is at hand." The Gospel of the Lord. One of my favorite authors is G.K. Chesterton. He's a British author and humorist, and he was made a very interesting comment about the 12-person jury system that they have in England. And it was a kind of a tongue-in-cheek remark, and he said, and I quote here, "For easy jobs, like exploring outer space, we choose extraordinary scientists. But for difficult jobs, like deciding if somebody is guilty or innocent, we choose ordinary citizens." And we've seen some of the actions in our history of this jury system. Ordinary citizens coming and making life and death decisions for people who go to court. Why aren't they specialists? And here we have Jesus choosing 12 people with very little qualification. And he chooses them to do one of the most difficult tasks there is to do on earth, to go and make disciples. We've been trying for 2,000 years as Catholics to make disciples, and we have not done that well. Only about 10% of the world's population is Catholic. And in the process, we have splintered God's church through our own fault and the fault of others. We haven't done very well. But he chose these 12 people to do the most difficult job, and they were successful in their time. How successful are we in our time in making disciples? Here they were called to go out and preach, and they were quite specific. Their focus was quite specific. Just as we have Alice and Letty, Alice must look after the house and Letty must look after the church. They had a very specific, and of course, Wendy, we're not going to forget about you. You've got to stay in the office and keep us all together. They were told very specifically what to do. Don't go to the Gentiles. This is the first time Jesus was sending them out. Don't go to the Gentiles. Don't go to the Samaritans. Go to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. In other words, go to the people who were Israelites and who left. A bit like, I suppose, the lapsed Catholics. And as I was meditating on these scriptures today, I was thinking, I wonder how many lapsed Catholics I know, and how often do I pay attention to getting them back into the church. And here I'm including and specifically focusing on my own blood relatives. My brother, my sister, my nieces, nephews. None of them. None of them. How good a priest am I if none of my family come to church and are not interested? Have I perhaps neglected them? I've certainly neglected them in my prayers. I've kind of thought, oh, well, God will look after them and it's in His time and that's it. And I must admit, I haven't prayed for them very much recently. I think that's a fault. So we are chosen, and so often we feel that we are unworthy. Well, exactly, we are unworthy. He chose people who were unworthy, one who even betrayed Him, one who doubted Him, Peter who fought with Him. But it didn't stop Him choosing the people that He felt, when they learned how to understand how much they were loved by God, would go out fearlessly and preach the love of God, which they did. And our first reading today is telling us very clearly that we must be careful when things go too well for us, because then we're going to forget God. When we are prosperous and when things are going our way, we must be careful, because we can become arrogant and proud. It is when we are in a time of suffering that we can rethink and refocus and do something fundamentally good for God. Well, lockdown time is exactly that time. This is a time of reflection on our relationship with God and each other, and refocusing on what we need to do. And we must never think, like the disciples, we must never think that we are too little or too inexperienced to do this important, difficult vocation of making disciples, especially, it would seem today, to those who were Catholic and have left. There are millions and millions. So to end off, I'd like to end off with a little quote from Amado Neville. I have no idea who that person is. Maybe somebody will Google them and let me know. But the prayer is from Amado Neville. Lord, I am only a spark. Make me a fire. I'm only a drop. Make me a fountain. I am only a feather. Make me a wing. And I think that's a lovely prayer for us today, because we often think so little of ourselves, and we look at our faults and our failings, and we forget to look at ourselves the way God sees us. When God sees a feather, He must be thinking of a wing. When He sees a drop of water, surely He's thinking of a fountain or a river. When He's thinking of a spark, surely He's thinking of a fire. So when God thinks of me, what does He think of? Amen.